everyone. Welcome to yet another insightful session organized by Future Market Insights. This time we have been associated with Enlite and MODERATOR Labs. I'm Ronak Shah with Future Market Insights and I'm going to be your moderator for the evening. Today I have a panel of experts who think future in terms of technology. With me on this virtual table, I have Mohit Shrivastava, Chief Analyst for ICT domain from Future Market Insights. Next up, I have Garima Bharadwaj, who is the co-founder at Enlite. Hi, Garima. And we have Ajay Kumar, the founding brain at Proptech Labs. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining.
Thanks a lot, Ronak, for having me.
Okay, for the audience who are new to our webinar series, let me give you a quick walkthrough of FMI. So Future Market Insights is actually in its 10-year of excellence. We are ISOMA certified and have a rich repository of nearly 15,000 plus reports across 12 different domains. And all of these are very niche reports. So they cater to very niche requirements of our clients. This is all about the work that we do. Now, let me show you the impact that we create with our work. So the client base that we have includes 80% of the Forbes 1000 enterprises. Also, we enjoy a client satisfaction rate of 4.9 out of 5, which makes us a clutch leader in business consulting. And I think all of this is only possible because of the exhaustive research methodology that we undertake. We have a dedicated approach when it comes to developing a research report, which actually starts with, market profiling, then formulating discussions around it. Then there are several other steps, and the final report that goes is very accurate and precise in nature, and it follows all the standards that are there in the industry. So that was a quick introduction to our research methodology. And as mentioned earlier, we have been conducting such webinars on interesting topics. And I would like to present a fun fact from my end, which is we conducted 5 webinars in 2023, which was the most in any year that we did. And we also enjoyed great participation from the audience across the globe. I'm also glad to announce the launch of our latest white paper on creating synergy between IT industry and real estate players. Audience, you are going to receive the copy of this white paper along with the decks presented and recording of this session in a couple of days. So just stay tuned and keep on checking your inboxes for these resources. All right, now before we begin with this insightful session, let me share some guidelines to follow. Audience, you are going to be muted throughout the session. But in case if you have any questions, what you can do is you can quickly go to the chat box and post your queries, and I'll get them answered by our experts of the day. All right, let's circle back to the agenda that we have. Personally, when I see that Proptech industry is growing at an estimated CAGR of 9.3%, I believe real estate industry is ready to adopt technology as the new normal. And when I say technology, it's no longer merely a search engine, for users to find their ideal properties, but the advent of AI, AR, VR, big data, Internet of Things, and similar technologies. I feel these have unlocked new frontiers for the real estate industry. But the question is this change going to be lasting and permanent? Let's hear it out from Mohit Shrivastava. Hi, Mohit.
Hi, Ronak.
So Mohit, how do you see Proptech in terms of the future?
I see a lot of potential in Proptech, as of now, because the way the digital technologies are being, integrating into the Proptech applications, we have been seeing various new and upcoming use cases with respect to these technologies. So yes, this is going to be a very dynamic field, and we estimate that the market would be growing at a very, very significant growth rate in the coming years.
Okay. Can we have the deck of Mohit, please?
Yeah. So Yeah. So we gonna talk about what would be the revenue potential in terms of when you talk about the PropTech industry. So as you can see in 2024, it's nearly about $38 billion, and it is projected to grow at $180 billion in the next 10 years with a CAGR of 16.8%. Now, basically, what are the factors which is driving this significant growth when you talk about PropTech? So one of the foremost reason is the diverse investment landscape into the PropTech industry, because we see a lot of startups coming into picture on various niche in the real estate market. So investors are targeting the early stage and growth stage companies and providing the capital to fuel the product development, to scale their operations, and to expand the market reach. And the way the digital transformation is emerging, the technology is being integrated into various aspects, maybe into digital platforms, the data analytics, Internet of Things, automation, which is streamlining the real estate industry processes. So we see a lot of data-driven decision happening in the real estate industry, wherein integration on analytics and AI is empowering the real estate professionals to make those data-driven decisions. So with these reasons, we believe that the market would be growing at a substantial rate. Now, if you look at the type of property, you can see a significant share is driven by the commercial property, because we see a lot of growth in the smart building technologies, especially the commercial aspect of that, wherein there is a rise of flexible workspace models such as co-working spaces and serviced offices. And there are a lot of growth in terms of the infrastructure development when it comes to commercial real estate through the private public and partnerships. So commercial property definitely gonna drive this market to a great extent. Uh, Talking about the revenue opportunities, if we break down this into a short-term, mid-term, and long-term growth and opportunities, we see short-term growth driver would be co-living and shared housing models, which will continue to gain popularity, and the shift to remote work and distributed workforce models that will create those immense opportunities. If you move down to the midterm opportunities, which would be the next 6 to 7 years, we see a lot of development into smart city solutions, urban planning, which would be contributing to the market growth. And if you take a very, very optimistic scenario in the long term, like maybe 8 to 10 years down the line, the ability to innovate and the ability to adopt these market trends would deliver value-added solutions, which would be driving the PropTech industries in the long run. Talking about the value creation in the real estate, we believe property management and operations, market analytics, property search and monitoring, and transaction and financing. These would be the key areas where the growth would be happening. Can you move on to the next slide, please? Yes. So when we discuss about PropTech industry, we should look forward to the VC capital funding, which is happening right now in the industry, which is a very, very significant driver to this particular market. Now, if you see in 2021, the market was very bullish, and there was almost around $32 billion investment which happened globally, which were driven by the intersection of the real estate and the technology, which provided the digital acceleration during the pandemic years. But then the investment kept on declining. In 2022, it was almost around 20 billion, which basically reflects the cautious nature of the investor sentiments. And then if you talk about last year in 2023, we see almost a $12 billion investment which happened in 2023. Now, this decline is not an indicative in the decline in the importance of PropTech in the real estate sector. It basically reflects a broader market correction and a return to pre-pandemic investment levels. So in the Q4 2023, we have been noticed a lot of renewed confidence in this sector in terms of investments. If you look down at the stage of the investments, you can see the seed stage investment dominated the scene, which compromises almost around 33.5% of the overall investment. And the high proportion of seed funding indicates strong investor confidence in the potential of emerging PropTech startups to disrupt the traditional real estate market. Talking about the year 2023, as we said that it nearly had around 12 billion of VC funding. It was majorly driven by the investors having confidence into the proven business models into the PropTech, and majorly driven by the digital transformation which is happening currently. Can we move on to the next slide? Now, when it comes to the outsourcing aspect of the PropTech business, we break down this function into two broad categories. One would be the front office business functions, and other would be the back office business functions. So we conducted a survey of recently around 550 PropTech businesses around the globe to identify their top priorities in outsourcing these various PropTech functions as front office and back office. So if I talk about the front office business functions, top three priorities was lead generation and management, which almost 70% of the respondent said, because they believe outsourcing these functions would be helping in generating leads, expanding the company's client base, and they would basically identify the sales opportunities and prospect the potential clients. Almost 65% of the respondent mentioned that customer service and support is the top two priority in terms of the front office outsourcing. Outsourcing services like customer inquiries, resolving those issues, and providing technical support are the major subcategories within the customer service. And the top third priority for front office outsourcing would be the virtual property tours. This is basically driven by the adoption of AR/VR technologies, wherein the outsourcing virtual property tours to showcase the property remotely, which can be an effective strategy for real estate agencies, property management companies, and individual property owners. Now, if we discuss about the back office functions and the top three priorities, the number one priority, of course, is the document management, because in real estate and PropTech, a lot of documentation is involved, whether it is leasing, contracts, data processing, data entry, database management. So document management was the topmost priority for the respondent in terms of back office business functions outsourcing. The second priority was accounting and finance, which was stated by almost 75% of the respondent. So outsourcing tasks like bookkeeping, accounts payables, receivables, payroll processing, tax preparations, and budgeting. These were the major factors which was driving this. And then the third priority was into property valuation, because it provides the necessary property information, documentation, and data to facilitate the valuation process. Now, there are certain key findings which we believe is appropriate in the PropTech industries. One, of course, would be the automation and AI, how it is impacting the PropTech outsourcing business. So AI-powered algorithms to analyze the real estate market data. Then we have machine learning models which automates the property valuations. We have AI-powered chatbots and virtual assistants which basically handles the customer queries. We have also seen a significant demand in property as a service. So basically this model in the real estate industry offers that the property related services on a subscription or pay-per-use basis. So this basically helps and give a more flexible and service-oriented approach to enhance customer experience. And then, of course, talking about other areas like smart building technologies, where IoT is playing a very, very crucial role in terms of hardware like sensors, which is used for predictive maintenance, occupant sensors, which is used for identifying the occupants in the properties. So all these building technologies are crucial, playing a very, very crucial role in the market growth. Can we move on to the next slide? Yes, so let's discuss about the prominent use cases in Proptech outsourcing. So number one would be blockchain enabled smart contracts. So smart contracts can manage property, title deeds and land registrations on blockchain network. The key benefit of blockchain, which is being incorporated into Proptech, is it provides a lot of transparency, security, and automation to the contractual agreement. So blockchain is being widely used nowadays for Proptech use cases. Another aspect is the managed IoT devices and smart building technologies. So we see a lot of integration which is happening of IoT sensors, smart security devices, building automation systems, which are typically used to optimize building energy consumption and ultimately, reducing the utility cost of the facilities. So this is another area wherein a lot of companies are exploring Proptech functions. AR/VR for virtual property tour, which basically provides a very, very immersive visualization of properties. It enables virtual walkthroughs of the properties. It offers interactive floor plans that allows users to visualize the property layouts. So yes, a lot of prominent activities are happening in integrating AR/VR into Proptech solutions. If you talk about the marketing aspect of the solutions, yes, AI and machine learning are being widely incorporated into marketing, wherein the chatbots and virtual assistants provide instant support and assistance to the website visitors. AI-driven content recommendation engines are also another perspective in this area, which helps the buyers or the tenants to get personalized recommendations. When you talk about property searching, we see a lot of traction happening in the integration of predictive analytics, wherein they generate a lot of personalized property recommendation based on the user preferences, their budget, their location preferences, and other criteria. And to analyze real estate market trends, such as property price, inventory levels, demand supply dynamics, this is where these predictive analytic tools are playing a big role. If you talk about the mobile apps, it typically enables the on-the-go communication and personalized experience that enhances the user engagement. So yes, Proptech is majorly driven by these on-the-go communication, which is the applications, which leverage digital advertising, social media integration to attract potential buyers and sellers. Coming to the last two use cases, which we believe are prominent, is the smart facility management, wherein predictive maintenance is playing a crucial role with the help of IoT sensors and connectivity devices for property management and monitoring. The providers are getting a real-time insights on the maintenance of these facilities, which typically is useful for fault detection, diagnostics, and maintenance of the properties. Last but not the least, we see a lot of traction happening in document management outsourcing, which typically drives the Proptech workflow automation. So it typically streamlines the property management tasks such as tenant onboarding, lease renewals, rent correction, maintenance request, and automate the document generation process, contract signing, and other compliance tasks. So these are the typical use cases which we are seeing prominently in the PropTech industry. Can we move on to the next slide? Yes. So here is a snapshot on a key growth factors and what are the major challenges which we believe are prominent in this PropTech business. So if I talk about growth drivers, of course, technology expertise plays a very, very important role because the way digital transformation is happening and the IT technologies are being integrated into the traditional real estate solutions. So technologies like analytics, AI, IoT, blockchain, again, would be leading this race. Scalability in terms of how the PropTech services can adapt to the changing needs and growth of the business. So to scale up the business, this is one of the growth factors. Another growth factors is we believe about the agility and innovation which is right now happening because a lot of providers are going into very niche areas into this industry, maybe talking about the agent-based PropTech tools or how contract lifecycle is getting automated and other use cases. We see a lot of growth happening into collaboration and communication where collaborative approach contribute to a successful PropTech outsourcing. And last but not the least, user-centric solutions because in PropTech, the end users which are being involved, they prioritize the user-centric design and functionality to ensure the broad adoption. So the vendors who are developing the PropTech tools are significantly focusing on the user-centric solutions to give a very, very enhanced customer experience. If we talk about the major challenges, of course, when there is collaboration, when there is integration, there is a lot of security and privacy challenges which would be upcoming. There would be cost management regarding the hidden cost with the outsourcing partner. There would be shortage of talent pool, we believe, which lacks the necessary skills and experience to understand the technicalities of these industries. And then regulatory landscape, which would be driven by the location and the geography, because each and every region would be having their own regulatory compliance challenges to fulfill. Can we move on to the next slide? Yes. So what would be the way to move forward? So we believe bridging the gap using the digital transformation technologies would be a significant step. So technology integration, yes, of course, would be driving the market because the digital transformation is fostering the collaboration and partnerships within the real estate ecosystem through the open platforms and APIs. And these transformations are also enabling real-time analytics and predictive modeling in the traditional real estate business. Another aspect we are seeing is the collaborative project planning for PropTech outsourcing. So we basically means to say is coordinating the efforts between the internal teams and the external service providers to ensure successful project execution for the real estate industry, which includes monitoring progress, performance metrics, and key performance indicators to track the effectiveness of the implementation. Another aspect would be the growth in VC funding, which would be disrupting the traditional real estate sector. So we are seeing a boost in investment in emerging technologies like AI, big data, IoT, which is transforming the various aspects of the real estate industry. So PropTech industries and PropTech startups are expanding globally. It is creating new target markets and opportunities beyond their home market. So this is where the VC funding would be fueling the market growth. Another important aspect which I would like to highlight is the sustainability and the green technology, which many real estate developers are currently pursuing to build and to demonstrate their commitment to sustainability and environment stewardship. So real estate developers are implementing energy efficient design features and technologies to reduce the energy consumptions and carbon emissions, which is the need of the hour today with respect to the way the climate technologies are been changing. And last but not the least, the evolution in the PropTech industry. So we are seeing a transition from PropTech 3.0 to PropTech 4.0, wherein the today's connected ecosystem will become more complex and it would generate more complex PropTech systems. So it basically represents the next phase of evolution wherein the cutting edge technologies of today's would be getting interconnected to create highly integrated PropTech tools. So by connecting these with today's technology stack to seamlessly exchange data, automate the process, and deliver actionable insights across the real estate value chain. Can we move on to the next slide? Yes, so this is it from my side. Thank you very much for this wonderful opportunity and your patience in listening. Over to you.
Thank you for your views. Yeah. Thank you for your views, Mohit. And even I think that regulations are going to be the necessary devil in the real estate industry, especially when it comes to the use of technology like big data and AI. Anyways, let's take it to Garima now. Hi, Garima.
Hi, Ronak.
So Garima, I would like to know about Enlite. And secondly, I want you to, tell me how you see PropTech through the, lenses of regulations.
Sure. So a little about Enlite. It's awesome that Mohit across his slides has highlighted a lot about sustainability and about green buildings, because that's essentially what we're doing. We're a part of Industry 4.0, which means that we are into IoT. We create smart devices to ensure that there is no wastage across buildings. Commercial real estate was a large part of the second slide of the presentation that we saw. And this commercial real estate utilizes 65% of the energy which is generated for buildings and ends up wasting 30% of it. We want to ensure that this energy is not wasted. And for this, we created smart systems which were able to run buildings autonomously. Anything which consumes energy inside a building, whether it's your AC systems, your lights, your water systems, this hardware piece that we have created sits on top of those applications and ensures that these systems only run when required and as required. So with that, we've already covered about 15 million square feet of commercial buildings of an area. We have contributed to saving about 2 billion kilograms of GHG emissions already, and this is only in 12 months of operations that we've done. And now, swiftly moving on to the regulations part. Since a company like ours or any prop tech company, since it associates with technology, it's very easy to come and say, adopt technology, but what about the regulatory aspect? Because what a realtor wants to understand is that I'm giving you so much data across any different segment of my property. How do you intend to use it? Because a lot of times companies in last few years have come in, have tried to do things, not just small startups. In our domain, there is a large industry leader which actually had a huge disruption last year, which costed that company about $27 million loss. And not only that, but all the data of the end clients was also available for everybody to see. So it becomes absolutely essential that the companies that you're working with are also equally compliant. While they're high on technology, they also have to be high on the credibility that they provide. So at Enlite, since we build a hardware and we also build a software along with it to see all of this data, we are compliant with ISO 27000, 27017, SOC 2, VAPT, because at the end of the day, whatever data that you have, person or device, it has to be exactly catered to how people using their financial transactions look at their data. So a bunch of things are already out there, and I believe everybody who's opting for cloud technology, few of the customers have started asking for it. It would be even better if more of them are aware about it, and then eventually also ask their vendors for the same.
Okay. Thank you so much, Garima. Can we have the deck for Garima, please? Yes, Garima, please continue.
Right. So one slide before. Perfect. So Mohit has spoken a lot about PropTech. I will just take a step back from there and talk a little about real estate. Just the next slide, please. The real estate is actually mammoth of an industry. If you think of real estate, it is about a $300 trillion industry. And that's the reason why PropTech is so big. If you look at even the case of India, we are already the 7th biggest market by construction in the world. By 2030, we'll be the 3rd biggest in the market. It is as huge as it possibly could be. It contributes not only in India, but in most of the countries. It's one of the largest contributors of GDP. In India, right now, we are at the infrastructure contributes to about 7% of the GDP. By 2030, we'll be contributing to 13% of GDP. Again, that is really, really big. And since it is going to be 13%, the number of sectors that it employs are equally massive. In India itself, if you look at different industries which are indirectly employed by real estate, stand at 251, because it could be cement, it could be steel, it could be technology, it could be wiring, it could be practically anything and everything under the world. So it's a huge employment generator. Now, all the numbers are really good. They're nice. Some of them I've written here. A bunch of them are, last year we were at about 78 airports in India. Right now we are at already 124. In about 1 year, we've completed a lot of new airports. We've completed 13,000 kilometers of highway when it comes to the public infrastructure. Private infrastructure is growing, and how we see luxury housing, we see offices. We would be creating about 2 lakh new rooms of hotels this year itself. So we're talking huge numbers in real estate. Now, all the numbers are very high. All the numbers look very good. There's only one number which has significantly been low, and it has never seen a high, which is the R&D spending of real estate on any kind of technology. Because at the end of the day, it's a cash cow. What you build is what you sell. So is technology even required? That used to be a large question. So we move on to the next slide, where if you look at everything that I've put on this slide, the reason why I just wanted to talk about it is that there was this inhibition of real estate. But why do you need technology? So who would have imagined before 1999 that everything could be delivered to your house? Right now, we don't want to step out. We see what will deliver in 10 minutes. We don't even want to wait for a day. That is the kind of tech that has come into the online e-commerce. The entire reason why we see from Amazon and eBay in early 2000s to pretty much everything having online delivery today is for the simple reason, for the convenience. And each and every day, our generation and our parents' generation have eased out to the idea of why is it so essential. It is not even a convenience anymore. Nobody has the time. COVID made us also realize that, you could even learn sitting at home. So people who were selling their courses on YouTube or teaching on YouTube, in fact, have billion-dollar companies today. I think Physics Wala in India is a big example to look at, started from YouTube, today has a company. From Khan Academy to Udemy, people realize just not students, even professionals could learn, and you really don't have to go to a college. If you have spare hours in a day, why not utilize it? And that is how EdTech became a darling of the VC industry and of the whole world, essentially. Coming to OTT, no, people don't talk about let's watch this movie on Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Everybody's asking, when is it coming on Netflix? When is it coming on Disney? When is it coming on Amazon Prime? The reason was simple. Everything is, again, at your home and your house. You consume content like never thought before. And when it comes to fintech, again, the biggest disruption that happened Imagine going to somebody and not saying, do you have a change? But you actually ask, do you have a UPI? Or do you have a QR code? Every traditional industry got disrupted. You stopped going to a bank, you stopped going to a theater, you stopped going to a physical class, you stopped going to a market, but the real estate stayed the same. Nothing much really changed about the real estate. And this was a very important reason why I first wanted to point out, why do we need PropTech in the first place? So moving on to the next slide, it is going to talk about what essentially is PropTech. So real estate technology, very simply putting it, is PropTech. Now the thing is that it's not that simple. When it comes to e-commerce, when it comes to OTT, when it comes to fintech, edtech, it's pretty simple. Problem is, I want to take a class online, I want to shop online, I want to pay online, and your problem is solved. In real estate, what aspect is going online? It's a $300 trillion asset industry. You just can't make real estate online because interestingly, it has so many subparts to it. There is buying, there is selling, there is leasing, there is occupying, there is smart building, there's green building, there is co-working, there's co-living. There are so many different aspects of real estate, and interestingly, they don't have a common stakeholder, which means that there are different parts of real estate which will always have to be digitized for a different stakeholder. If you're a person who buys, you're looking at solving a problem of aggregation, where you can see everything at once online. If you're a person who's selling that property, again, you're looking at an aggregation of selling it online. You could be a property manager, a facility manager. So that is why PropTech, by and large, a very blanket term, is using property technology to solve problems in the real estate through digital innovation, and which aims to enhance different subparts in real estate. So moving on to the next slide. Let's look about what technology real estate has already seen. So it's not that real estate is a laggard. So essentially, there was a first wave of technology, which was in the early 2000s, which was nothing but aggregation. So a Zillow in a US or a 99 acres or a Makan.com in India aggregated everything at one place. It was the .com time where everything was about aggregation. So you have houses, you have commercial spaces, whatever you want to put onto one place happened in the early 2000s. Now 2010s was about discovery. Aggregation had already happened. What people wanted to discover were two different things. One, services around what you had already explored, which means that, okay, I saw all the properties that were aggregated. Can I also do my rentals, my leasing, all of these things online, which was mostly for the commercial segment? And when it came to residential, we all must have heard of a company called Nest, which was later acquired by Google, which was for making homes smart. I want to set a particular temperature. I want to see a certain ambience of a light. I want my house to be in accordance with my taste. And that is how it led to Apple building a HomeKit or Google acquiring Nest. So this was the 2010s. 2020s is when actually people realized that properties could do a lot more and one could do a lot more with the properties as well. IoT as a term has been around for a very long time, maybe 8 years, 9 years. And I used to love when people so many years back used to say, IoT is amazing. And you ask them, okay, but how does IoT help you? They did not know because it was still a terminology. Solutions were not built around it. But 2020, during COVID, people realized what IoT can do is I don't have to be physically present at a space to be managing different aspects of a space. AI can do for me things which I can be virtually present in, and it does not require my physical presence for them, which meant it could be a virtual home tour. It could be remotely viewing your entire portfolio of buildings. It could be managing your building operation. It could be BIM as a technology, drone as a technology, mapping your landscape, and pretty much everything around deep tech is 2020s. And the future is the buildings getting automated. And the beauty about this entire tech is while it took a certain decade to come from the first wave to the second wave and second wave to the third wave, the tech speed is so high and also the acceptance is much better than before that it's not going to take a decade. Whatever future that we're talking about is companies who are already building out solutions for this future. Next slide, please. So one thing that I spoke about is that why PropTech is just not a blanket term like a EdTech or a FinTech is. First, let's see that what these problems are, because if we're talking about outsourcing of this entire problem, now I could be a construction manager and there could be a property manager and a facility manager. All three have very different problems to tackle. I just care about construction that I'm doing needs to be delivered on time, within budget, and without any kind of a safety concern. But that's not what a property manager thinks, because a property manager comes into play in an operational building, which means that there do not have to be complaints. The building operations need to be kept within certain compliances. And also, you need to see that there is efficient performance of everything inside a building when it comes to machinery. But now, maybe this is not a problem of a vendor manager, because what a vendor manager is supposed to do is get more and more vendors for that property for different products or services. On this one slide itself, we're looking at 4 different personas in a real estate. Now, if we look at construction, the problem is project delay, budget overruns, safety issues. But the stakeholders, it's a developer building that building, a contractor, a construction manager, and the investors who have actually invested in building of that property. Now, vendor management, which talks about the difficulty in tracking of vendor performance or ensuring that compliances are met and managing of contracts, here the stakeholder is suddenly not the developer, it's not the investor, it's not the construction manager. It's a property manager, a procurement team, and the service providers, the third-party people who to provide these services. Operational efficiency, again, manual processes could be very erroneous, but the stakeholders are now property managers, admin staff, and the facility manager. In a tenant engagement and retention, if you have leased out a property to multiple tenants or a single tenant, here now the stakeholder suddenly becomes again a property owner, it could be the tenant or a third-party companies, which are generally called PMCs, providing these services. When we move on to the next slide now, we will see some more stakeholders into smart building and sustainability. Now, it has nothing to do with a vendor manager, it has nothing to do with a property or a facility manager, it's certainly now the building owner. In large companies, it could be a ESG or a sustainability officer, and tenants who want to be an occupant in a green building. Sales and leasing. Now, again, here it's a real estate agent, it could be a buyer, it could be the people who are leasing. The problem being lengthy sales cycles, a lot of paperwork, and of course, transparent transactions. And then compliance regulation, lack of market investment, again, 2 more problems. What I really want to highlight here is that the problems are not repeated, nor are the stakeholders. If one is to draw a Venn diagram, one would find a lot of circles on the entire. This is how real estate is crazy. Probably people could have 400 startups and everybody would be doing well. So many other problems in real estate. Now, so many problems, we can't really expect that if there's a builder who has these problems, which I've mentioned in 2 slides and could be 2 more, that, you know, my team is going to solve it. Really, which is this team? There are already 8 to 10 stakeholders of different problems. Everybody is going to go to their tech team and say, hey, solve my problem. Build an aggregation solution, build a leasing solution, also make a green building solution, also something for the vendor, also something for the procurement. And maybe the tech team will say, okay, I'm just going to call it a day. I can't do this anymore. And that is why it is extremely important to start outsourcing these. There are companies which are there in the market which only exist because these problems exist. And that is what they do. They build an expertise in solving one of these niches for the real estate. Next slide, please. So this is what here now I largely want to talk about. So on the call, there's me, there's Ajay. Both of us are in real estate. And neither of us have overlapping solutions. Maybe we have absolutely 180-degree difference of solutions. And that's the whole beauty. He could be a market leader in his and I could be mine, because We're still solving for the real estate, for a $1 trillion industry. Look at a construction management software. There are people who are developing amazing technologies in the terms of providing drones to map the construction sites. There are amazing softwares which are available in the market where somebody can not only see the mapped property, but you can also go and figure out if the project completion is on time. It acts like a project manager. You can track the budgets which are there, also see the safety compliances. And all that now a person inside that company has to do, the person who's developing this, is to manage if everything is happening right and not really build out a solution, because construction is from procurement to construction. Vendor management has the same thing. One need not build a vendor management solution. There are great ERPs which are available out there, from where you can see what you have been using the most, what is the product that you buy the most, are there vendors that are blacklisted, what is the credit period of different vendors. You can choose between them. You can see how compliant they are. And they're out there. They've been doing this probably for last 2 decades or so. And there's no need to reinvent that, because they have invented this and they're redoing this and they do it pretty well. Property management automation is again pretty interesting, because while a real estate developer can only think about, I am just going to digitize this. But the companies who are developing property management automation have already gone far and beyond. They're using AI and ML to ensure, to now not only see that there is a tracker, but to ensure how do those deliverables actually happen on time. So there are trackers which are more than smart enough today. There are great platforms out there which are delivering for your property management. Also, they integrate a part of financial management here, which could be tracked. Workspace management is a huge industry by itself. We've seen some great companies out there which are into workspace management, from meeting room booking to pantry booking to booking a shuttle to your house to giving complaints to your landlord, visitor management. Everything and more is available in the Sun. I remember seeing a workspace app which actually had 200 services, and they are probably 15 years old. So I don't know which company or which real estate provider could build 200 services. And you just go to them and say, hey, this is additional problem. They'll be like, okay, 201. I can do that. They've been doing this. We'll go to the next slide. The smart building technology. Sustainability sounds really good. It sounds very cool. Green buildings sound very good. But how do you actually create sustainability? Sustainability does not happen from thought. Thought is good, it's very noble, but now something has to happen. And it cannot happen on an Excel sheet, it cannot happen on an email. You need machines to function for that, which means that if you're wasting certain things in the term of natural resources inside your building, that needs to be restricted and that needs to be made more efficient. People can't do that because it cannot come from somebody's gut. And there are companies which develop these solutions. We at Enlite developed this solution, which is a smart building technology. We have created world's first native cloud building management system, which has an intelligence which runs everything as it should. And by doing this, we have also helped a lot of companies get green building certifications like IGBC, GEM, even WELL certification, because we ensure from building air quality to HVAC systems, things run as they should within certain thresholds. And in the news, if somebody's seen it today, we've already breached the 1.5 degree global warming mark today itself. Not a great thing, but there we are. So we need to create more solutions to ensure that the buildings are smart, since they are the biggest culprits. If we talk about the numbers, the amount of the amount of wastage of energy that buildings in US do is capable of running all the buildings in Great Britain for 7 years. And then now moving on to some digital sales and leasing tools and data analytics and marketing insights, like yourselves, the kind of work that you guys are doing to provide those insights and to prepare those reports is not something that one can search online. You need to do a lot of primary market research and just not secondary to be able to provide the data, the what and the how of the market, and the why as well. And the sales and leasing tool is again interesting, because from being able to provide a 3D tour to providing somebody how they can envision their entire house on 3D before actually buying certain products in it is pretty interesting. Regulatory compliance becomes very important because everything else is tech, and tech needs to be manned by compliances. So there are companies which are already providing for a lot of systems in real estate, since also much more transparency is required in this. We move on from here to the next slide. So just few numbers here, that it is able to reduce the IT operational costs for any company by 40%. The project timelines are practically halved by using technologies like these. Also, any company which is building this technology is essentially building this company by themselves. So they are the specialists in doing that. Always better to outsource it to somebody who does it for a living rather than try to do everything by yourself, because it also helps you on your core business by increasing your productivity by 30 to 40%. There's a huge talent pool available now. Thankfully, everything has gone very, very remote. So it could be a company anywhere making a fabulous solution, and it's always available to anybody. The project failure likelihood is less, at least by 60%, once that you are using all of these specialized tools. We move on to the next slide. And quickly, I just wanted to give an example, because since we're talking about outsourcing of technology, we have done it at Enlite. So building management is nothing but trying to centralize building operations to one place. Largely, this is a manual task. Somebody will go run around in the morning, take all the readings of the energy meter, and once in the evening, subtract both the numbers and show this is how much my building has consumed. It's really a very worthless effort, and they have to do it twice a day, every day, for months and years, because you have to know how much is your building consuming. Same happens for water. You have to go run around and make these notes. And you're making these notes on a paper. Probably you will mail it to somebody in an Excel sheet, and then if somebody really likes making pivot charts, they'll make something out of it and say, hey, we spent so much. What is actually happening with doing all of this? Practically nothing. Your buildings are still unsustainable. There is still no conservation of energy, water, or resources that has happened whatsoever, because people decided to rely on people. At the end of the day, there are certain things which a machine does much better, does much well. So what did we do for this is created a solution. Solution is called Know Your Building. Know Your Building is an interplay of IoT hardware and an AI-enabled platform which speaks to this hardware. We'll see it on the next slide. So at the end of the day, when we take our solution, the IoT hardware, and put it in any commercial building, you can start monitoring the energy. You can start monitoring the usage of water. Just not that, you can start controlling those applications. So you want to control your HVAC applications. You want a certain set point. You don't have to set it anymore. You can just leave it. The systems come with a lot of sensors which understand the number of people inside, the kind of set point that they would want, what is the temperature outside, and keeps setting the end applications accordingly by themselves. This helps in creating, first of all, a centralized monitoring mechanism. You can view whatever is happening in your building remotely, because the intelligence exists on the IoT device as well as on the AI platform. In fact, the snapshots that you see here are of the live dashboards that we have across, where you can see the things which are on, off, any alerts generated out of them. It helps you optimize the energy usage. It helps you do predictive maintenance, because again, in a traditional system, things are only improved once they fail. Here we are able to tell, hey, this is going to fail, so either we rectify them or we do predictive maintenance. We tell you this is probably going to fail. And tenants complain a little less. They don't say, hey, today we are carrying a jacket and today is very hot. It optimizes for the entire premises, the indoor air quality as well as the temperature by its sensory nodes. Next slide, please. And here, what you see, this is exactly what the platform again looks like. There are a lot of digital dockers which are built inside that. Mohit was also speaking about how do you create documents into one centralized space and digitize them. So any document about any equipment that you want to put here, the AMCs are coming up, you can just digitally store all of them here. We have been able to provide an improvement of about 30 to 40% on energy usage wherever we have deployed a solution. It is already about 1/5 of any of cost of any traditional solution in the market. We definitely provide insights and forecasting, and we have been able to provide for 2 billion kgs of reduction in GHG. Moving to the next slide. Just some more snapshots of what we do. We provide you an entire one place to see your entire portfolio of buildings. There's the environmental impact of sustainability that you can see, insights that are generated. Next slide, please. And pretty much everything about the building and even outside the building is integrated into this platform. Next slide. And some more details. The reason why it's called Know Your Building is we got very inspired by Know Your Customer. People know so much about customer, absolutely all the details. So let's make it Know Your Building, which is a trademark term also now. We go ahead on the slides. And yeah, just ending it by 3 things as a takeaway. So first of all, what is the technology that you want? It's very important to know what are the biggest problems in your real estate or organization that you want to solve by technology, because at the end of the day, that will only give you ROI. Otherwise, it's very disillusioning as a path to just adopt technology without knowing why you're adopting it. What is the path to implementation, and then finding out the right partners, because I think discovery is a huge problem when it comes to real estate. With a lot of problems also come a lot more solutions. So finding out the right sourcing partners is super critical to this. And with this, I'm largely done with my presentation, and thanks everybody for listening, such a patience.
Thank you, Garima, for your time. And I really agree to you when you mentioned that, real estate is such a big landscape that you can be working alongside and still not compete with each other, because there is so much to do. And one such concept is hybrid rental. To shed some more light on this, we have Ajay Kumar. Hi, Ajay.
Hello.
So Ajay, welcome to the webinar, and I would like to know your views on, hybrid rentals.
Definitely. So maybe we can jump directly into the presentation. I talk quite a lot about hybrid rentals. Let me maybe start by giving a super quick introduction about myself. I'm Ajay, co-founder of Proptech Labs. I've been an entrepreneur for about a decade now, largely in the PropTech and real estate space. I had previously started a company called Cozy Homes, which was essentially a real estate marketplace. Sold it in 2019, and then set up Proptech Labs as a SaaS solution. What we essentially do is that we build software to manage any kind of real estate asset, be it residential, commercial, retail, or any other asset class as well. We work with over 150 enterprise clients across 11 different countries, and our solutions are used to streamline revenue management, leasing operations, tenant experience, and a whole lot more as well. So that's a super quick introduction about myself and what we do. Today, I'm going to talk about hybrid rentals. So can we move to the next slide? So what we've kind of noticed is that there is a new asset class that we are seeing emerge within the real estate landscape. Internally, we're calling it as hybrid rentals. Now, what do we mean by that? If we move to the next slide, we can go one more. So what we're referring to as hybrid rentals is essentially a new class of real estate, which is a cross between hotels and multifamily units. These are really assets which allow bookings anywhere from one night all the way through to, let's say, 3 or multi-year leases. And they have amenities and services that cater to both short-term rentals as well as long-term rentals. I think the way to think about it is, imagine maybe a hotel which has 50 rooms, where maybe 25 of these rooms are earmarked for nightly stays. Maybe 10 of these rooms are earmarked for people who want to stay at least for a month or longer. and maybe like the remaining 15 rooms are earmarked for people who want to maybe like stay for at least 6 months or longer, right? Or another way to look at it is you can take a multifamily apartment. Let's say there's a large multifamily building which has maybe 200 or so apartments. Imagine maybe half of them are earmarked for the traditional multifamily use, which is multi-year lease, but then maybe 100 of these apartments are actually earmarked for people who want to stay for less than a week or so. So that's really a new kind of an asset, because normally the multifamily apartments are used for long-term rentals and hotels are used for short-term rentals. What we really mean by hybrid is that what if people stay for multiple months or multiple years in a hotel, and what if people are allowed to stay only for a night in an apartment, right? So that's really what we mean by hybrid rental. So let's move on and go to the next slide. Let me talk a little bit about why hybrid rentals are becoming increasingly popular. So we can move to the next slide. So what we notice is that there's quite a lot of demand for a new type of housing. I think the housing industry, like especially the rental industry, is under quite a lot of pressure in multiple parts of the world. What we do notice is that like employees are not really as willing to return to an office. This is a lot more profound in the US, where like hybrid seems to be the default way of working, but quite a lot of companies are going all remote. Although like there's been quite a lot of return to office mandates, like people are not coming back to offices the same way they were doing before. Now, what that really means is that the demand for housing is increasing in different parts of the country. So it's not just New York and San Francisco, like which are seeing spikes in housing demand. Like it's actually happening all over the country, where like people are allowed to work from their hometown, like they want to work from a vacation spot, etc. So people are not really returning to offices. So the demand for housing, which used to be concentrated in a few metro cities, is not as high anymore. There's like a lot of demand in other pockets of the country as well. What we also notice is that young renters want a lot more flexibility, and renter demographics once again being younger by default. A lot more people are interested to just like stay in a place, have a fun experience for a few weeks or a few months, and then move on and repeat that in different cities across the country or different locations even within the same city. A lot of the younger renters do not want to be tied down to the rental property for a long time. So that's really what is creating the demand for this new type of housing asset that we're talking about. Let's move to the next slide, because what we notice is that there is also a demand from the investor community for a new type of investment opportunity. Now, what do we really mean by this? Like what we notice is that interest rates have like spiked, and the rental yields on the traditional multifamily assets have dropped, right? Like earlier, when the interest rates were still at around like 2 to 3%, like rental yields in multifamily were about like 7 to 8%. So that created a very good arbitrage for investors who borrow money and invest that into multifamily. But we're noticing that's not the case anymore, because interest rates are like touching 4 or 5%, and yields are like down to about 4 to 5% once again. So that's it's really hard for investors to create that arbitrage and keep deploying capital back into multifamily. What we're also seeing is that investors are trying to pull their money out of the office market. The office market, which used to be a very considered to be a super safe asset class to invest into pre-pandemic, is not a very safe place to keep capital anymore. Quite a lot of investors are pulling out of the office real estate investment opportunity, although they still want to keep their money within the real estate ecosystem. They don't want to keep their money in offices anymore. Now, a third area that we notice is that investors who've invested in hotels, while at the moment hotels are doing really well, they're able to show a very positive yield curve, but they've realized that hotels is not a COVID or a pandemic proof asset, because quite a lot of like hotels like went down to 10, 15, 20% occupancy like during the pandemic, and that created a very sharp fall in NOI. It actually like created a lot of like losses for investors in like hotels. So like even investors in hotels like want to figure out a way they can protect themselves against another pandemic. So these are like some of the triggers that we are seeing that's creating an opportunity within the investor community for a new type of asset to invest in. So let's move ahead, right? So this is like the broader opportunity, right, that we've talked about. So how can an operator, an investor, like take advantage of this opportunity? How do you actually leverage hybrid rentals and like make that as a competitive advantage in your business? So let's move to the next slide. So let me give you a few pointers that we feel like people can consider and leverage to their best capabilities. I think asset creation itself becomes a really interesting opportunity to look at, especially for investors. There's quite a lot of conversion of hotels and multifamilies into hybrid rental asset classes that we're seeing. A lot of our customers, like who focused on traditionally been a hotel focused player, like they've started like moving more into hybrid. Like quite a lot of the multifamily owners, they've started moving into hybrid as well. So there's a very good opportunity to like take an existing hotel or a multifamily and then convert that into a hybrid rental asset. Also, what we're noticing is that quite a lot of like office conversions are happening into hybrid assets as well. As we've spoken about, offices in the US are like fairly vacant right now. There's quite a lot of conversation on how do we convert offices into another type of an asset. There is a lot of pull to convert offices into residential, but just the way the core office building is structured, it's really difficult to repurpose an office asset into a pure residential asset. But it's a lot easier to like repurpose that into a hybrid rental asset. So that's another second opportunity that you can look at. So like there's like a couple of ways that the asset creation game can be played. There's quite a lot more as well, but these are the immediate low-hanging fruits that we see. Let's move to the next slide. So any operator or even a landlord or an investor who's looking at doing something like this needs to figure out how they want to market these offerings. If you've always been in the long-term rental game, like you really need to figure out how do you get short-term rental bookings. So setting up your channels on like Airbnb on Booking.com like is really something for you to do. At the other end of the spectrum, if you've always been a hotel and been relying on Airbnb and Booking.com to get you your bookings, you need to figure out a way to start getting bookings through Zillow and like Trulia and apartments.com, etc., and kind of connect your inventory to these platforms as well, so that you can start getting bookings from alternate sources. Of course, going offline and working with real estate agents, which is not something that hotels normally do, but connecting your inventory through real estate agents like becomes another way for hybrid rental managers and investors to look at marketing. So these are some of the areas that we would recommend that hybrid rental managers focus on. So let's move to the next slide. With respect to operations and services, because people are like entering into a new asset class, they need to think about how they're going to streamline their operations. I think like having something like a reception, which hotels have, but typically multifamily apartments, like not a lot of them have it. Like setting up a reception is like a low-hanging fruit. How do you actually do housekeeping? Housekeeping is something that the hotel industry is very comfortable doing, but then you don't really see serviced residences or like you don't really see a lot of these services being offered in multifamily apartments. So how do you add something like that? Do you add a concierge service, like which once again like kind of gives your tenants a little more premium experience? So these are some of the services that like we've seen customers add when they go from either short term or long term and come somewhere in between into a hybrid rental asset class. So this is something that like we recommend to customers to kind of think of as well. So let's move to the next slide. Of course, a super important aspect to keep in mind is actually legal. In some countries, just as an example, in India, to go from an apartment to a hotel is surprisingly easy. You actually don't have too many regulations in place. There is no real licensing. You don't actually like need to get a license. Like you just need to register with the local police station, and it's a super easy registration to do. So it's not very hard to do something like that in a country like India. It's actually not that hard in a few other countries as well. But then in more developed economies, hotel licensing is a real thing. You need to apply for licenses, and there's a finite number of licenses that are given out to do something like this. If you're a long-term operator or an investor and going into the short-term game, you need to figure out how you're going to do licensing. It's also worth thinking about how VAT and GST or any local taxes might be applicable. Typically in the multifamily long-term rental space, once again, these taxes are not really applicable because long-term rentals is typically exempt from these consumption taxes. Whereas like in the short-term game, these are applicable. So if you are staying in a hotel for a couple of nights, you might normally see VAT or GST in your bill. So if you're a long-term player going into the short-term game, you need to think about how consumption taxes in your country might affect your business. Of course, if you're going from a multifamily into a hybrid asset, We also need to think about how the utilities might change, because typically in a hybrid asset, like the utilities are built on commercial tariffs and they're not built on residential tariffs anymore. So like these are like some of the high level legal points that we recommend customers to look at when they're making the switch from purely a short term or a long term player into more of a hybrid rental operator. So let's go to the next slide. Now talking about the bigger theme of today, which was like in and around software and technology, like there's quite a lot of softwares and technologies available out there that will enable customers to go from a short-term or a long-term operator to going into a hybrid rental operator. I think the property management software becomes a super low-hanging fruit. Like you definitely need a core system of records to take care of bookings, managing your leases, managing your like rentals, etc. I think access management is definitely an area that is getting increased adoption. How do you central leasing is such a big theme for quite a lot of property managers. So how do you have like secure door access systems to ensure that like guests can move in and out of your property, tenants can move in and out of your property, and then you restrict access for people who should not be given access. So we normally recommend all of our customers to immediately look at good door access systems when they're moving from into the hybrid rental ecosystem. Tenant experience, of course, becomes a super important parameter as well. Is there a way that through a mobile app you can connect your customers to their homes, like to your buildings, so that they can digitally check in, they can digitally check out, they don't need an access card anymore to open their door. Their phone can do that for them. Is there a way that you can connect multiple people within your buildings, even if it is like a short-term guest, to kind of like help them meet their neighbors, etc. So quite a lot of this like packs into the tenant experience ambit. So these are all some of the Proptech solutions that hybrid rental operators are using, looking forward to using as well. And we strongly recommend that they think about some of these things. So if we can move to the next slide. Just as a very quick like pointer, like so this is essentially what we do through our product called the House Monk, where whether it's a PMS, whether it's an app for the field staff, like whether it's an app to engage your tenants, like we kind of bring everything into one ambit. So we allow property managers to broadcast their listings on Airbnb, like Zillow, and a whole set of other marketplaces, so that they can get bookings. We connect with, we have our own property accounting software through which like lease rentals management happens. Of course, we have an operations app through which you can check in, check out your tenants. We of course have a mobile app for the end tenants through which they can like seamlessly manage their entire experience. So that's essentially what we do as a company through our product called the House Monk. So let's move to the next slide. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to give a couple of case studies which are very specific to hybrid rental, so that you can understand a little bit more about the impact that something like this can create. If we can move to the next slide, I'm initially going to talk about one of our customers, LHN Group. This is a fairly large group. It's a publicly listed real estate company in Singapore. They have hotels, co-living, and multifamily in their portfolio, like a little over 1,600 units in their portfolio at the moment. Operations in multiple countries, about a team of about 150 people or so. So now let me we can move to the next slide. So let me talk about how we actually help LHN with hybrid rentals. Can we move to the next slide?
Sure.
Thank you. So one of their primary challenges was that they had, when they started working with us a few years ago, they had about 1,300 rooms across 25 different assets, but they were primarily a hotel. They did not really have a hybrid strategy at all. And when the pandemic happened, like their revenue practically went down to zero. And one of their big themes post the pandemic was that, hey, like we should never be in this situation again. So we do not want to be purely a hotel from now on. Like we want to diversify our revenue a little bit. And once they started working with us, like their inventory got connected to short-term rental channels, extended stays rental channels, as well as like long-term rental channels, which was like a super important outcome that they wanted to meet. The second challenge that they had is that they were unsure on how they could price their offers. They were very competent in the hotel space, so they knew that, hey, like I can charge $120 for a room a night. But if somebody wanted to come and give a booking for 6 months, they were not quite sure how do we actually price it. for someone who wants to stay with us for 6 months versus somebody who wants to stay with us only for a night. So what our software actually helped them do is that it actually helped them do both outcomes. It helped them start getting long-term bookings and extended stays bookings through our channel manager. We have a pricing engine that like helps customers understand a little bit more about how to price their offerings for various durations of stays. A very interesting thing that happened is that like their net operating income increased by about 26% in 2023 compared to 2022, which was a significant increase. Of course, there were tailwinds from the pandemic as well, which played a significant part in this. But that aside, there was quite a lot of increase that happened because of diversifying their revenue stream. Their revenue from extended stays and long-term rentals, like extended stays, we define as anything more than 30 days. So their revenue from extended stays and long-term rentals is now about 40%, which was 0% in going into the pandemic, right? So like quite a lot of their revenue is now coming through extended stays and long-term rentals, which was a very key theme for them to diversify revenue out of short-term rentals. So quite a lot of impact. So they're like super stoked about the entire hybrid rentals concept, and they're doubling down on that as their business progresses. So let's move to the next slide. So let me do maybe like one more super quick case study. This is about another one of our customers called Lee Abbey in London, who increased their revenue through getting short-term summer bookings. So let me talk about that. So let's go to the next slide. So Lee Abbey is a student housing company. They have about 350 rooms. They're focused only on student housing, right? London being a university town has quite a lot of colleges and universities around. It has a very global population of students coming in and out of the city every year. So Lee Abbey is one such player who was focused on providing housing solutions for students. So let's move to the next slide. One of the things that we noticed, or Lee Abbey noticed, is that they had great occupancy for about like 10 months every year, which was during the academic cycle, where their rooms were like practically fully booked out. So they had about a 98% occupancy. But then over the summer, when the college season was out, their students typically like went to another city to do an internship, or quite a lot of them went back to their hometowns or their home countries, wherever they were from. So they had an occupancy only of 20%, right? Like during the summers. Now that of course is a very big revenue loss because the inventory is like lying idle. So what we were able to do for Lee Abbey was that we were able to connect their inventory onto the short-term rental channels like Airbnb and Booking.com only for the 2 months of because like during the academic season they were already booked out. But the 2 months of summer, we were able to connect their inventory to short-term channels, and we were able to like increase their occupancy during that as well. So one of the impacts that we were able to deliver for such a customer was that the occupancy over summer 2023 was about 65%, which was 20% in 2022, increased dramatically to about like 65%. And their overall revenue as a company increased by about 18% 2023 compared to 2022. With really the only big change being that they added summer bookings through short-term channels to fill up the vacancy. So very significant improvement all around. So these are two examples of companies which are either in short-term or long-term rental, and how they've been able to accentuate their revenue stream by getting into the other and adopting an overall hybrid rentals approach. We can move to the next slide, but it kind of like brings me to the end of my presentation. Hope it was useful for everyone.
Thank you so much, Ajay. I really believe that PropTech will no lesser than being a default setting for the real estate industry of tomorrow, despite the fact that it is just a value addition for today. I'm really sorry that we are out of time. Like our panelists like to go extra mile in their workstation, they have exceeded a couple of minutes. So we do not have time for question and answer session, but what we can do is, audience, all your questions that you have posted in the chat box, we are going to get back to that via an email. So you'll be receiving our white paper, answers to your questions, the presentation deck that was presented today, along with the recording of this session in a couple of days. I would quickly like to sum up whatever we have discussed. I believe that for real estate industry to make more evident and realer success, it has to follow the virtual pathway. So my 2 cents from this webinar is virtual is the way to go for real estate industry. Thank you so much, Garima, Ajay, Mohit, for your time and attention. Thank you, dear audience.
Thanks
Thank
a
you so
lot.
much.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.